anticipated series is here. I am going to supercharge my LEXUS GS 400. I've been talking about it for a while, and now the time has come. Episode 1 is going to walk you through everything you're going to need to do this on your 3UZ, your 1UZ VVTI. Also, many of these things carry over to engines like the 2UZ, or some of you truck and SUV guys. A lot of that carries over. This might be applicable to you. It might give you some pointers and some tips, even if you don't have a GS 400. Now, the best thing you can do is hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Just go down there right now and click it. It's somewhere down there, and that really helps me out. Also, if you like the video, be sure to hit that thumbs up. That helps me. Commenting helps me as well. So let's jump right into it. What is this pile of stuff that I have in front of me? I'm going to walk you through each item. I tried to put it in the largest item and the most important kind of over to optional over here. Probably 95% of the items. I've got a couple things coming right now that are really tiny items. For example, one is a 1/8 NPT plug. That's not shown, but that's going to go on the bottom of this adapter right here. The reason is because there's an open port on the bottom so you can run an IAT sensor. I'm not going to run an IAT sensor yet because I'm not intercooled. Once I go intercooled, I'll have to take this off anyway. I'll put an IAT sensor up under this awesome Elate adapter. I have a T coming because I'm running this, I'll talk about it more, split-second enricher. And a lot of you have asked me questions about that on Instagram. By the way, my Instagram is, I'll put it right here. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. And I talk about what it is, what it does, and then you'll see on the screen a brief description or a title pop up, and then you'll see the part number if it's applicable. If I have a part number. Some of these things I don't have part numbers for. My friend gave me this, and I'll talk about it. This is just a different shape of upper radiator hose, and it helps route the radiator hose a little bit away from the supercharger belt. So if I figure it out, I will put it in this video. Super excited about the series. I don't know how many parts of the series there are going to be at this time. My manual swap series, if you've seen that, was roughly a 6-part series with a couple follow-up videos. I would imagine that this one is going to be anywhere around 4 or 5 episodes. I'm going to walk you through the parts on episode 1, how to get your supercharger ready for install, because you actually have to do a fair amount of prep on that thing. You can't just buy an Eaton supercharger off the internet and expect it to be ready to go. It doesn't work that way. This Elate adapter is just, I cannot say enough good things about this, and I cannot say enough good things about Travis's service at Elate. But this piece here, and I've inspected it, and I look at aircraft parts for a living, so I would hope that I have a good eye for this. This thing is a beautiful piece. I don't even want to install it. I want to put it on my wall. It's so nice. Make sure you support Elate. Make sure you show support for these companies that are making this possible for us, because otherwise we'd be hodgepodging and fabbing stuff together, and it would be super expensive. Let's jump right into it. As you can see, I'm caffeinated and super excited about the series. I hope you share that same excitement. Let's go. Well, here's the supercharger, guys. This is an Eaton M112. This is the stock pulley. I put on a 3.8-inch pulley because I didn't want my boost levels to be at the level that this Cobra Mustang pulley would be at. We anticipate that it would be somewhere in the 7 to 8 PSI range, and I really wanted to keep it lower at like 5 to 6 because I am not intercooling at this time. I will intercool in the future and then probably go to this pulley. Things you want to look for when you go look at these online, I would say look for a stock pulley. If you see a smaller pulley on there, like a silver one or something, you know that people are spinning this sucker at a high RPM. Chances of needing an overhaul are much higher. Make sure that if you can put your hands on it, or if you can have someone send you a video online, you're going to want them to turn this back and forth really hard and listen for a clicking metallic noise. And that would show that there's some play either in the coupler, which is easy to replace, or in the rotors themselves. And I'll go into more detail in episode 2 about all of the modifications that you're going to have to do, including changing the oil in the snout. I highly recommend that. By the way, here's the oil. You need 2 of these because these are 4 ounces each, and this thing takes 7.3 ounces in the snout area. Episode 2 will cover all of this. I pulled a couple studs out of here and found a couple hex fasteners when you get this cast elbow. We'll talk about that in a minute though. So here it is, guys, M112, highly efficient, doesn't take a lot of horsepower to make horsepower. Start getting up into the 10 PSI range, it's gonna take a lot more horsepower to make horsepower. Up next, we have this adapter by Elate. It is so amazing that I'm gonna get it away from all this clutter and I'm gonna put it over here. Check this out. Let me walk you through what we got here. So your injectors and your fuel rail and all that will plug into each side here. This is the back. One thing you'll notice right away is this block off plate. Now this is a super trick design. For those of you that don't want to go intercooled at first because of the cost or whatever your reasons are, this blocks it off so you can go non-intercooled. Later, you can add the intercooler core and unblock this. You can run an intercooler. That just opens up possibilities right there. What a cool modular design. Under here, we have a couple ports. You can run boost, map, you can run IET, whatever you need to run. It comes with one plug. And it also comes with this 90-degree. What you can do is you can run this underneath, because this is the top, and it can run to your boost, or it could run to some other device that you might have hooked up, or you can plug it. So I do have a plug coming that is a 1/8 NPT plug. I'll have that as a link. It's a 6-pack off Amazon. It's like $5.99 or something. I'm probably gonna plug that because when I go intercooled someday, this has to come off again anyway. I can add a port for IET. So this is what the block off plate looks like from the other side, from the back looking in. You can see it's blocked off. The water coolant would run in and out through there. Get a nice bag of hardware, you get a sticker, you've got online instructions. Let's take a look at what's in here. You can scan that with your phone, or you can just go to their website. Should be that. So this will be the standoffs for your fuel rail, nicely packaged, and of course the Elate keychain if you want to run that with your keys. My particular top plate came sealed because I think Travis knew what I was doing with this. These sometimes will come separately and you'll need to actually run sealant in here to make sure that you have a complete seal. That is a step you're not going to see me do in the video series because I didn't have to. I think Speed Academy shows that part. If you need to see that, you can look at what Speed Academy does. It's nothing too crazy. If you're taking on a supercharger job, then I'm sure you're going to be able to know how to seal this properly. Now, one other thing is gasket. This gasket here, I'm going to hyperlink to. You can see the part number there, MS96110. And the cool thing about this, you don't have to mess with any gasket maker or whatever. It's not going to goop up on here. You can get the supercharger off and on. And that's what I'm gonna do. So your supercharger, front sits here, back sits here. That's the adapter. I'm gonna flip it over so you can see that. Look at the attention to detail here. You've got a nice design by Elate into the bottom side, something that no one's ever gonna see unless they're doing an install or a removal. This is we're gonna have some gaskets that get placed between here. We use OEM gaskets and they'll go into each head, of course. I'm just gonna be quiet for a second and kind of go around it. I'll show you guys the idea. Adapter with the M112 on top. No gasket in between, of course. Just showing you guys this. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, look at that. Man. We looked at a couple large items and now we're gonna get into some smaller stuff. This right here is a tool that my buddy sent me, and this is a stud extractor. It easily pulls studs out of different things. For example, on the supercharger, you're gonna have to pull a couple. You can actually use, I think it's a 5mm socket to get these out. It's pretty easy. I did use it on one of them because it was pretty tight. On the intake manifold itself, you're gonna have to pull out some studs, and this thing makes easy work of that. Next are the gaskets that go between the Elate manifold and the heads. These are OEM gaskets. You're gonna need 2 of them to go ahead and replace them. Part number will be right up here, but I'll say it out loud, 17171-50020. Next, this is a FelPro gasket, and that will actually go between the supercharger and the Elate elbow. So it'll go right here. If you want to retain your stock fuel system line, you can actually remove it and put in a special adapter. I'm actually going to cut it. When it comes to feed and the fuel feed from the stock system, there are two different options. One would be this type of connection here. This would actually screw into the stock feed. I'm going to cut it. And what happens when you cut it is you add one of these fittings here, and then you create with a female connection right there, a female 6AN. It goes into the feed line, you're going to hose clamps and all that stuff, but you cut it. So if you ever want to go back to stock, it gets a little more complicated to go back to stock. Depends on how you want to do it. And that's how a lot of this job goes. It just depends on your preference. You're going to need to split it off into two different connections, one to each bank. It goes from a 6AN male to 4AN males. It's called a Y connection. All of these threads, you're going to want to put Permatex 2 gasket maker on them just to make sure they're sealed and there's no leaks. After that, we have to put some straight connections in to these two 4AN connections. So what I have here are 4AN, 4AN, 2, and straight barbed ends. This line will come into play. And then what we're going to do is we're going to utilize this line. It's going to run to each bank, and that's where we have these 90-degree part number 624153, 90-degree 4AN black anodized twist lock connections. That's what those look like. We're going to have to plug into the stock fuel rails, okay? And then you're going to want that washer on there too. So you're going to eliminate the factory fuel dampers on the end of the rails. And these are going to plug in, so you're not going to have those anymore. This is only if you run that green radium fitting I showed you earlier, that one. So this is something my friend also sent me. So you don't, it's just hard. You don't need this if you're going to go with this silver connector. But if you're going to go with a green type connector, then you are going to need this. It's very confusing, and I don't want you guys to order more parts than you need, but you need to decide how your fuel delivery is going to work in order for you to know what to get. Make sure you get some fuel line. This stuff is like 1/4 inch or 6.4 millimeter, 225 PSI, 6 feet. It should be plenty. During the install, you'll see why we needed to do this. You can't run the stock fuel delivery system. Elate elbow, or you have to buy this piece if you want to run the stock throttle body like I do. This is where the stock 1UZ throttle body will mount to. This will go on the Supercharger itself here, like that. Nice piece, cast aluminum. Get it from Elate when you get your adapter. On your stock throttle body, you've got that cable run. That's why this is important, but I highly advise you to run it. This is a 3/8 to 1/4 inch MIP adapter here, and then this is a 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch FIP adapter. These are barbed hose fittings. They will be instrumental in the Supercharger episode 2, and I'll show you why you're going to need these in that episode. These are M8-1.25 nuts. And I have 2 washers in there because you're going to need them when you go to fasten your elbow on here to the studs. Next, Walbro 255 fuel pump. It'll bump your pressure or PSI by about 5, the fuel rails. You don't want to run out or get lean on fuel on wide open throttle runs. Not much to see here, it just looks like a fuel pump. It fits in the stock location, so you don't have to modify the hanger. I highly advise you getting this from the fuel pump factory because there are tons of counterfeits out there and they are an authorized dealer. I'll hyperlink this, Walbro 255 from the fuel pump factory. You're gonna need that. Next would be this split-second enricher. There's not much to see here. Comes in a nice box, comes with instructions. This is all it is right there. A wire harness in here that plugs into this. And what this is going to do, because I get a lot of questions about this is going to help you partial throttle boost scenario where maybe you're going up a hill and you've got your foot in there a little bit or you stab it. This is going to help in closed loop to make sure that your system doesn't run lean when it goes into boost. My friend has this on his GS400, which is supercharged, and he said it made just a huge difference. Well worth the money. Split Second's been around forever. Check them out. I'll hyperlink in the video description, and I will show you how to hook it up. 1 step colder plugs. Good idea to go 1 step cooler. These are BKR7E plugs. You're going to want 8 of them if you're 8 cylinders, of course. Let's get into the intake system. Your 1UZ throttle body is 3.25 inches, so you're going to need a reducer. So you've got 3.25 OD here, which will fit over your 1UZ throttle body, which will be mounted to this. I don't know, something like this. Then of course, hose clamps, you're gonna want that. You can use some of your stock hose clamps, which are on my car right now, but I had some sitting around, so I already have those. This is a 45 degree, 3.25 to 3 inch reducer. I'm probably gonna have to cut this, but I want it to be longer than I need so that I don't get it too short and get it wrong. Next is a 3 inch humped coupler right here it came with 2 hose clamps. And then we have this 120 degree intake tube, which has the ends on it, which have that ridge on them. So that's cool. And then I added this little LEXUS sticker. That's all you need for intake. Surprisingly, I mocked this up on my car with some measurements, and I had a lot of room to play with. This here will go on your math on the GS400. I'm gonna use the stock air box. I don't recommend that you do anything other than going a cold air into the fender well or doing the stock air box, and that'll be a 3 inch coupler that you need, 3 to 3. I like the humped coupler because you have a lot to work with, a little bit of flexibility built in. And then this tube here, I think it was like 35 bucks. I'll hyperlink it, it's on eBay. I'm not into the chrome look, so you can paint it or powder coat it if you want to, but this was like the cheapest option around. There's some other ones, but they were like double the price. This is a smooth idler, and the part number is 0288-JJ10E, like Echo. The idler is going to be installed as part of the pulley system on the engine. Next, we have this poly belt. I talked about this in the intro. This is a different radiator hose on the upper inlet. This was sent by my friend. Again, I don't know part number, but I'll read off some things. 09D20YRS. It says 80MH23. So you guys can try to cross-reference those part numbers and see if you can find it. This will help route the radiator hose away from the belt, from this. So you don't want to get tangled up with the stock one. Next, we have 4 coolant passage gaskets. When you take off the intake manifold, you're going to see them. There's one in the back and one in the front. And so 4 gaskets total. These aren't very expensive. Part number is 35941. Boost gauge. This is FST 8213. Mechanical boost gauge. It looks really nice in the car. There you go. And of course, I also utilized a dual pod pillar gauge thing, but it's going to do the job. I also have this Bosch boost gauge hooked up to lighting, so you can see that it lights up. So that's pretty cool. These last 2 items are maintenance items that I highly recommend. When you have that intake manifold off, you are going to want to do your starter if you haven't done it and you have high mileage. These starters are notorious for going out sometimes 150,000, sometimes less, sometimes 200,000. You just never know. You're rolling the dice. So while you have that intake manifold off, because you don't want to have to pull all this off again just to get to the starter. There's a couple things that you're going to want to do. The starter, like I just said, went with an AC Delco Gold, and the part number 337-1187. Next is NOx sensors. These are going to hurt. I highly advise you against the temptation of getting ones that appear to be quality OEM or whatever. If they're cheap, there's a reason they're cheap. I wouldn't roll the dice with NOx sensors, guys. There's 2 options that I recommend, OEM or standard motor. As far as I know, my NOx sensors are working properly, but they have 171,000 miles on them. And they're in a very hot part of the engine, right above, each head. They're just a tiny little part, real easy to replace when you have the intake manifold off, so why not just get it done. Aside from some odds and ends like wiring, because you're gonna have to extend your throttle body wiring a little bit, and soldering iron, some split wire loom, that black stuff that's flexible, you're gonna want some of that. Aside from that, this is about it. It looks overwhelming, there looks to be a lot of parts here, but Elate has some really good instructions online, plus you're gonna have my videos to follow. and I'm gonna try to walk you through every little step. There's some other videos out there that will be helpful as well. I wanna make sure that my videos cover all the parts, everything you're gonna need, almost every step, at least 95%. That's my goal. If you're not already a subscriber, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, drop a comment, get ready for episode 2. I'm gonna show you how to prep that supercharger. Thanks guys, see you on the next one.